The world ended for me on a Tuesday in May, 5 years before it ended for everyone else. The sun was bright that day and the air tasted like pollen and exhaust fumes. I was covering the May Day protest downtown, just a freelancer with a press pass and a good camera, trying to get the shot that would make my name. The police lines surged forward without warning, a solid wall of blue and black plastic, and the crowd compressed into a single panicked organism. A scream went up, not from one person but from all of them, and then the pushing started. I went down hard, my camera shattering against the pavement beside my head. Someone's boot came down on my leg and I felt a clean, sickening snap, a sound louder than all the shouting. Then the weight came. Body after body piling on, a human landslide burying me alive. I couldn't breathe, my ribs screaming as the air was forced from my lungs. I was pinned, my broken leg twisted at an impossible angle, and all I could do was listen. The sound was the worst part, a symphony of terror I couldn't see, made of splintering bone and wet, desperate cries and the ceaseless drumming of running feet on the concrete above my head. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, crushed and helpless in a sea of strangers, my world reduced to a cage of flesh and a universe of sound. That's what it cost me, everything. Now, the only sound is the quiet circulation of air from my filtration system. I run the morning diagnostic, a routine as ingrained as breathing. My fingers move across the keyboard, pinging the network I've built in the silence. The traffic light at the corner of Franklin and Utah blinks green, then yellow, then red, a ghost obeying my command. I trigger a car alarm 3 blocks east, a brief, jarring shriek that echoes in the empty street, and watch my monitors as the sound pulls a dozen dormant figures from a shadowed alley. They are called echoes, and they flow like water towards the noise. I log their path and their numbers, my face reflected in the screen, calm and detached. On another monitor, I cross-fade the view to my hydroponic garden, where rows of green lettuce and heavy red tomatoes grow under a gentle purple light. It is all a system of inputs and outputs, of predictable patterns and controlled variables. Chaos is just data you haven't properly organized yet. My eyes catch on the photograph taped to the edge of one of the monitors, the only personal item in the whole command center. It's me and Haya at an Orioles game years ago, both of us grinning, her arm thrown around my shoulder. The memory of our last real conversation rises unbidden, sharp and bitter. Her face was tight, with a frustration that felt like a physical blow. I can't live like this, Jet. Curled up, waiting for the sky to fall. This isn't safety, it's a prison you've built for us. I'd rather take my chances out there, really live for a day, than die of boredom in here with you and your monitors. I push the thought away and turn back to my work. The memory, a useless variable I can't control. The lights flicker for a moment and the battery backup kicks in with a solid click. A power fluctuation. I frown and run a full diagnostic on my own systems. The solar array on the roof is functioning at 98% efficiency, but the battery reserves are draining faster than they should. I check the water filtration levels and run a fresh inventory of my preserved food stores. Everything is stable, but the fluctuation came from outside. On camera 7, which has a clear view of the Viridian, I watch 2 figures emerge from a service entrance. They drag a third person between them, someone who is struggling weakly, and they execute him with a single, silenced gunshot to the back of the head. Vex's crew. They are efficient and brutal, and their existence reinforces every decision I have ever made. I need to know more about their power grid. I activate my small recon drone, its rotors spinning up with a low whine, and send it out my window on a direct course for their building. The drone flies steadily for 2 blocks, a tiny eye in the sky relaying a clear image of the empty streets. As it nears the Viridian, the video feed dissolves into static, and the drone's motor cuts out. It drops from the air like a stone, crashing silently onto an apartment balcony below. It was shorted out, fried by some kind of massive electromagnetic field. I had assumed they were just scavengers with guns, but this is a real defense system. My best piece of intelligence hardware is gone, and I am now blind to a key sector of the street. My over-reliance on a single piece of tech, a sudden glaring vulnerability. Frustration tightens my chest. I have backup systems, but they are older and less reliable. I pull up a high-resolution satellite image of the city, a static picture downloaded months ago, and begin the slow work of cross-referencing it with my remaining live feeds. It is tedious, painstaking work. Then I see it. On the roof of Mercy General Hospital, there is an inconsistent reflection, a flash of light that doesn't match the sun's angle on any of the surrounding surfaces. It could be a piece of metal, a shard of glass, or it could be a threat. I decide to reroute auxiliary power from the hydroponics to camera 4, a shaky, low-priority camera with a decent zoom lens. The gears grind audibly as I aim it. Block by block, the image wobbling with each adjustment, until it centers on the hospital roof. The image resolves from a blurry collection of pixels into a sharp, undeniable reality. A figure is standing there, small and thin in a dirty paramedic uniform. She is holding a hand mirror, tilting it to catch the sun, flashing it in a slow, deliberate pattern. SOS. It is Haya. She is alive. My world, the one I had so carefully constructed from firewalls and reinforced steel, collapses into a single point of light 3 blocks away. My castle has become a cage. My hands shake as I pull up the city maps, my software already highlighting the most direct route. 3 blocks. It might as well be the surface of the moon. The map populates with threat indicators, red circles for high concentrations of dormant echoes, and shifting blue zones for the patrol routes of Vex's scavengers. I open the hospital's architectural blueprints on another screen, my mind racing through possible entry points. I trace lines with a trembling finger, my eyes skimming over the schematics for an obsolete pneumatic tube system, dismissing it as useless junk. I note the location of the bulk oxygen storage on the building's west wall, marking it as a critical explosion hazard to be avoided at all costs. I run a simulation, a small digital icon of a person moving through the streets, and with each step it takes, the memory of the protest claws its way back into my throat. The weight, the crushing pressure, the inability to breathe. A full-blown panic attack grips me, and I double over, gasping for air that feels too thick to enter my lungs. This is suicide. It's impossible. I look up at the monitor showing Haya. She isn't just waiting. She has tied a fire hose to a roof fixture and is trying to rappel down the side of the building. The scraping noise of her boots against the brick is enough. A single echo peels away from a group in the street below, its head snapping up, and it begins to shamble towards the hospital wall. Haya sees it. She scrambles back up the hose in a desperate, clumsy panic, hauling herself over the ledge just as the echo begins to climb. She is out there, fighting, taking insane risks, and I am in here, suffocating on my own fear. Her struggle makes my inaction feel like a physical betrayal, a choice I am actively making to let her die. She collapses on the roof, a small, exhausted shape against the grimy gravel, her fight gone. That image breaks something inside me, a final wire snapping. I stand up and walk to the main console. One by one, I turn off the monitors, plunging the room into the dim purple glow of the garden. The silent, dead world vanishes, leaving only me and what I have to do. I move with a methodical purpose, packing a small bag with a crowbar, a tablet loaded with the downloaded maps, and a bottle of water. I walk to my front door. The door. I haven't touched it in 5 years. My hand trembles as I reach for the first of the 6 heavy-duty locks. The metal is cold. I undo it, then the next, and the next, each metallic clank, a final, irreversible decision. I pull the heavy door inward and step into the silent, still hallway of my apartment building. The concrete stairwell was a vertical tomb, and the silence pressed in on me, heavy and thick. My own breathing was too loud, a ragged counterpoint to the frantic drumming in my chest. Each landing was a new level of hell, the light from the grimy windows just enough to show me how trapped I was. My vision started to shrink, the edges turning gray and fuzzy like a dying monitor. The memory of the weight, of bodies pressing down, of screaming I could only hear, flooded me. My back hit the cool wall and I slid down, the crowbar clattering on the steps. I had to stop it or it would swallow me. 5 things, I whispered. my voice a dry rasp in the stillness. Haya taught me this years ago, back when a crowded grocery store felt like a war zone. My eyes darted around, frantic. 5 things I see. Cracked paint on the wall. A dead roach in the corner. My own hand shaking. The steel of the crowbar. A scuff mark on my boot. My lungs burned for air. 4 things I feel. The rough concrete against my back. The solid grip of the crowbar handle now. The damp chill of the air. The sweat on my neck. The gray receded a little. 3 things I can hear. My own heart. My breathing. Water dripping somewhere far below. My breath hitched, steadied. 2 things I can smell. Rot. Old, settled decay. I took a deeper breath. 1 thing I can taste. The metallic tang of my own fear. I stayed there for a full minute, just breathing, letting the world solidify around me again. It wasn't gone, the panic, but it was back in its box. I picked up the crowbar and continued down. The street was worse. It was open, exposed. A killing floor under a hazy gray sky. Dormant echoes stood scattered among the derelict cars, motionless figures waiting for a signal. My plan was simple, something I'd run 1,000 times in simulations. I pulled out my tablet, its screen a comforting blue glow in the gloom. My fingers flew across the surface, accessing the scripts I'd planted months ago. I selected a sedan 2 blocks north and activated its alarm. The sudden, piercing shriek cut through the silence. A beautiful, horrible sound. As one, the heads of the echoes snapped towards the noise, and then they began to move. A lurching, flowing river of bodies pouring down the street, away from me. I waited until the path was clear, and then I ran. My lungs screamed. My legs felt like lead after years of disuse. I was halfway across when one of them came out of an alley I hadn't seen, a blind spot my crashed drone used to cover. It was on me before I could think, its hands grabbing at my jacket. The thing was fast, not a shambler at all. We went down in a clumsy tangle of limbs. Its teeth snapped inches from my face, its breath a foul charnel odor. I twisted, shoving my forearm under its chin, and fumbled for the crowbar. The swing was awkward, desperate. I felt a wet, yielding crunch as the steel connected with its skull. And then another, and another, until it stopped moving. I scrambled back, my body shaking uncontrollably, and threw up in the gutter. The reality of it, the visceral horror, was nothing like watching it on a screen. I made it inside the next building, a looted office space, and collapsed behind a desk, my whole body trembling. That's when I heard the voices and the crunch of boots on scattered paper. I held my breath, pressing myself flat. 2 men passed the doorway, dressed in scavenged tactical gear. They carried rifles with a casual competence that terrified me. One of them keyed a radio. "Anything?" A voice crackled back, tinny and distorted but utterly commanding. "Vex. Negative. Keep sweeping. The reactor for the boy's life support is failing. We need someone who knows how to operate a dialysis or filtration system now. The signal from the roof is our only lead. Secure the medic." The words hit me harder than the echo. A boy. Vex wasn't just building an empire, he was trying to save his son. He needed Haya not just as an asset, but for a specific, desperate reason. This wasn't a rescue anymore. It was a race. Vex's patrols had the main streets locked down, a web of choke points and traps I couldn't risk. My tablet showed Haya on the hospital roof, pacing, her small figure looking frail against the endless sky. She was getting weaker. I didn't have time for caution. I pulled up my own maps, the ones I'd built from city planning schematics, and found another way. A utility nexus, deep in the basement of a library. It was a risky play, a move that would create pure chaos. I navigated the darkened library, my footsteps echoing in the vast, empty halls. The nexus was behind a heavy steel door. Inside, thick cables snaked across the floor, all feeding into a central grid controller. My tablet was my key. I interfaced with the grid, my fingers a blur as I bypassed firewalls and rerouted power. I found the Viridian's feed, a messy, jury-rigged system piggybacked onto the city's old infrastructure. I knew from the radio call that Vex's life support system for his son was tied directly into it. I targeted that unstable connection and began a cascading overload. The result was bigger than I expected. I watched it on my tablet, a live feed from a traffic cam I still controlled. A series of low booms, then a massive explosion tore the facade from the Viridian's lower levels. Fire bloomed into the sky. The sound was a physical blow, even from half a mile away. It was the dinner bell for the entire district. My tablet screen showed rivers of echoes pouring from every street, every building, a tidal wave of bodies converging on Vex's fortress. It was a perfect diversion, a clear path to the hospital. But the camera feed shifted, and I saw something else. I saw the swarm wash over a smaller building, a fortified brownstone I'd noted before. Lights in the windows flickered and went out. I saw figures on the roof trying to fight back before they were overwhelmed. I had just killed them. I had sacrificed dozens of people I would never know to clear a path for myself. The weight of it settled in my gut, a cold, heavy stone. Vex was enraged. His radio chatter, which I monitored on a scanner app, shifted from methodical commands to clipped, furious orders. He knew the explosion wasn't random. He knew someone was out there, someone with my kind of skills. He was no longer just trying to capture a medic. He was hunting me. His best hunters, he called them, were deployed with a new mission: find the ghost who did this and bring him to me, alive. They knew the city's underbelly better than I did. They used the maintenance tunnels and sewers, forcing me off the streets and down into the suffocating dark. I splashed through a sewer tunnel, the foul water soaking my pants, the brick walls so close they scraped my shoulders. The air was thick, wet, and smelled of filth. It was tight. It was dark. The sounds of the trampling came back. The screams, the feeling of being crushed. My breath hitched. I scrambled for the small pouch on my belt where I kept my pills, my emergency brake for the panic. My fingers found only empty fabric. I looked back and saw the bag floating in the murky water behind me, lost. At the same time, my tablet chimed with a proximity alert. Haya was moving. She'd seen the explosion, and like the hero she always was, she thought it meant casualties. She was heading down from the roof, back into the hospital, looking for survivors and supplies. She was walking right into the overrun floors, away from me. They herded me perfectly. I scrambled out of the sewer and into a maintenance corridor beneath Mercy General, only to find it was a dead end. A solid concrete wall blocked my path. I turned and they were there, two shapes blocking the only way out, their forms silhouetted by the light from the tunnel behind them. I raised my crowbar, my hands slick with sweat. The fight was a blur of frantic motion. I swung wildly, but they were professionals. One of them slammed into me, driving me back against the hard pipes lining the wall. My tablet, my last connection to my nest, to Haya, to the world I understood, flew from my grasp. It hit the concrete floor with a sickening crack, the screen fracturing into a spiderweb before going dark. I was blind, alone. A radio on the hunter's vest crackled to life. "We have him, Vex. Sub-level C." Vex's voice came back, no longer enraged, just cold and final. "Box him in. I want him alive." The words broke me. Trapped in the dark, my tools gone, my plan in ruins. The phantom weight of the crowd crushed down on me, the roar of their panic filling my ears. My legs gave out and I collapsed, sliding down the wall onto the filthy floor. I curled into a ball, shaking, lost in a memory I could never escape. My fear had finally cornered me, and it had won. I lay there on the grimy floor, drowning in the darkness, paralyzed. Then, a voice cut through the phantom screams. Haya's voice, not from the radio, but from a memory so clear it felt real. "This isn't safety jet, it's a prison." The words echoed in the empty space of my mind. A prison. My nest, with its reinforced door and filtered air, was a prison. Vex's fortress, with its brutal rules and life support machine, was a prison. This corridor was a prison. My own fear was the bars, the walls, the lock on the door. It always had been. Something shifted inside me. I stopped fighting the panic. I stopped trying to push the screams away. I just let the terror wash over me, let the adrenaline flood my system. But instead of being consumed by it, I felt it sharpen everything. The phantom roar of the crowd faded, and in its place, my actual hearing became incredibly acute. I could hear the slow drip of water from a pipe 20 feet away. I could hear the soft scuff of the hunters' boots as they shifted their weight. I could hear the faint whisper of air moving through a ventilation grate near the ceiling. The fear wasn't gone. It was just focused. It was a lens, and through it, the world became terrifyingly clear. I wasn't a man running from chaos anymore. I was a part of it, and I could finally see. My mind was a blueprint of the building, a perfect schematic I had studied for weeks from the safety of my apartment. The ventilation grate was connected to the central HVAC system, which was a maze, but the pipes running along the wall were different. They were part of the hospital's old pneumatic tube network, an archaic system for moving paperwork and samples that I had previously dismissed as useless. I looked at the hunters blocking the exit, then at the access panel for the tube station set low in the wall. The path forward was not through them, but around them. I pulled myself up, moving slowly and quietly along the wall, using the pipes for cover. The hunters were taking their time, confident I was trapped. I reached the access panel and pried it open with my fingertips. The system was dead, no power, but the canisters were still inside. I pulled one out, a heavy metal cylinder, and looked at my crowbar. It was the only thing I had to give her, the only tool, and the only message. I used a sharp piece of debris from the floor to scratch letters into the canister's painted surface. It was crude, but clear enough. Roof. Lewd. Noise now. Fiery escape. I slid the crowbar into the canister and slotted it into the tube marked pharmacy. She would go there for supplies. I knew she would. I found the manual release valve and yanked it hard. A loud whoosh of stale, compressed air shot the canister down the tube, a metal messenger rocketing through the walls. The sound made the hunters turn, and that was the moment I moved, scrambling into a smaller service tunnel I had spotted on the mental blueprint. I was moving through the building's veins now, flanking them, using the knowledge from my nest in a way I never thought I would. I heard one of them following me into the tight passage. I grabbed a loose piece of conduit from the floor and threw it down a connecting corridor. It clattered loudly on the concrete. A moment later, I heard a guttural snarl, and then a wet tearing sound followed by a scream that was cut short. One down. I found a ladder and climbed, emerging into a darkened janitor's closet on the 3rd floor. I could hear it then, a faint, rhythmic shriek that was growing in intensity. Hiya. I moved to a doorway that overlooked the hospital's main atrium, a massive open space that dropped 15 stories to the lobby. Below, I could see Vex and his main force, at least 6 of them, spreading out across the marble floor, their flashlight beams cutting through the gloom. They were starting their sweep. Then the world exploded with sound. It was not the shriek I had heard before, but a deafening klaxon, the hospital's master fire alarm. Haya had found it. I looked up and saw her on a balcony on the 12th floor, a small figure standing next to the shattered pull station. The sound was immense, a building-wide pulse that vibrated through my bones. It was a dinner bell for every echo within a mile. They started to pour into the atrium from every door and every hallway. At first it was a trickle, then it became a flood. They dropped from the balconies above, landing with sickening crunches before getting up and joining the flow. The stream of bodies became a swirling vortex of motion, all converging on the lobby where Vex and his men stood frozen in the center of the storm. Their rifles were useless against the sheer number. The flashlight beams jerked wildly and then went out, one by one, swallowed by the tide of bodies. I ran, my legs pumping, my lungs burning, heading for the west side of the building where the fire escape was. I burst through the access door and saw her, her face pale and smudged with dirt. She was just a few feet away, her back to the balcony as the first wave of echoes swarmed over it. I grabbed her arm and pulled her onto the metal grating of the fire escape just as the press of bodies shattered the glass railing behind her. We scrambled down the stairs, the metal shaking under our feet. Below us, a figure was climbing up, moving with a desperate, furious energy. It was Vex. He had survived the slaughter in the lobby, his face a mask of pure rage, his only thought to get to us. He had his weapon. but I had the chaos. I pointed to a large cylinder mounted on the wall next to the fire escape, a high-pressure oxygen tank I had noted on the blueprints. I put the hooked end of my crowbar over the valve and threw all my weight into it. The valve snapped with a sharp crack, and the tank erupted with a sustained, deafening hiss, a sound so pure and loud it drowned out even the fire alarm. It was an irresistible siren. Vex stopped, looking up at me, then down at the street where hundreds of echoes were now turning and beginning to surge towards the base of the fire escape. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. He could try to climb past the noise to kill us, or he could try to retreat through the noise to escape. Both paths led to the same end. He screamed something at me, a curse lost in the roar, and then he was gone, pulled down into the swarming mass below. We climbed the rest of the way up to the roof, the hiss of the tank and the roar of the horde below a constant sound. We stood together on the flat, open space where she had been a prisoner, the same place that started all of this. We looked out at the city, a broken landscape under a permanent gray haze. I was outside, in the open, with no walls and no monitors. The noise of the world was all around me. I took a deep breath of the cool, unfiltered air, and I did not feel the need to run. I was right where I needed to be.